Hi everybody, this is Scott Clark from the Knobs and Handles Restoration Workshop and Storefront in Prairie City, Oregon. Today, well, we're going to answer some questions. Had somebody else send me a note and they said, how were Eastlake doorknobs made? Each one of them hand carved? And the answer is yes, but no. Each design had a designer that was in charge, and that person designed the doorknob, was responsible for the entire design, and then they would make essentially forms or patterns from that original. And so they're like babies, children. And so it had a lot to do with, there was an explosion of design of door hardware back in the early 1870s. Actually, well, let me show you something here. You're looking at a doorknob, but in reality, you're only looking at the face of the doorknob. There is the guts. There are the guts of an Eastlake doorknob. So this is the face. And you can see it's nice, right? And then over here, this is the back or rear of the doorknob. So that's what it looks like on the back. So when you grab it, this is you're touching this side here. This piece is the shank, and this goes in. Now people they think they're heavy and they think, oh, these are solid. Most of them are not solid, actually. Most of them are empty. And the reason for that is, well, the shank is solid. If you see that piece right there, that is solid cast bronze. Everything from up here is solid, but it's designed to be hollow. So the reason was, back then labor was cheap, but materials were expensive. And so they could save 80% on material costs by making them empty. And so that's what they did. It was efficient. So back in about 1869, I believe, was the first patent for what was called compression casting, and that's where they took liquid metal and blew it into molds under high pressure. And that gave them the ability to make things, anything really, with a lot of definition to it, right? And so things like this could happen. If you look at the background in this, you'll see all kinds of patterns in the background, not to mention everything in the foreground. Same thing here. Amazing design, right? We don't do that stuff anymore. I don't know why, too expensive. Anyway, so I wanted to chat with you about how these were made. So if you look at this, we have one piece, we have another piece, which is the back or the rear, and then we have the shank, right? And the shank, you can see, is put in there. Okay, so what happened is that's a three-piece unit. And the way it works is this face has a round over on it. So this rim is got a radius on it. Well, originally it was more straight on the bottom side. And so what happened when they manufactured them, they put them together. First they would register. So they put this pin and a guide in there, and that registered everything. So that said, okay, this knob is going to line up, the face of this knob is going to line up that way with the back of the knob, right? So that everything worked as you rolled it over, the design carried, right? That's how they were put together. And then what they did was they placed this, I could do this, oh my gosh. They placed this over the top, and then they ran a tool across the edge, which clamped it over and into that little groove right there, that little groove that you see right here. And it rotated it down, and that made this all appear to be one piece, which is the way they look. So if you look at them, that's, they look like they're all one piece doorknob. But they're not. Here's another one. This one's a lot heavier, like the amount of metal that's in it is a lot heavier. You'd find that a lot more in some of the more custom shops and some of the commercial products. They're just beefier. anyway, and of course that has a spindle stuck in it, and there's your shank. So, you know, a lot of them though had more pieces. They would run a separate, separate piece across from here to here. So sometimes there was a band that ran across. Do not believe this is a banded one, but there were banded ones. So essentially you'd have 3 pieces, or 4 actually. So you'd have your shank, you have your back or your rear, you'd have your face, and you'd have a rim. With drum style doorknobs, they're different. So this is a drum here. There were different kinds. This is your basic drum, and what it had was the face was when the face, actually you can see it right here. Okay, so it's a 3-piece. So you see this little line right here. That little line going around the edge, that's the rolled lip that held the face on. And then if we flip it over, let's flip on this one. No, this one did it differently. This one actually is 3-piece as well. So shank, back, face. What they did with this one is the back is rolled over and continues to be the rim, which then they roll over at the end onto the face. So 1, 2, 3 pieces. There are others that I've seen that go the other way, but I don't see any right now. Anyway, this type of drum, it definitely does. So see, it's rolled. The face is rolled right into there, across the top. But this bottom piece is one, right? So it's rolled differently. It's attached differently. It rolls this way instead of the other way. So every manufacturer is different. I just want to say that. They all had their own things, their own way of doing things. They had their own patents. They had their own materials. Now, back then it was cast bronze or wrought bronze. We're talking about casting today. Most everything was cast until about 1895. Then you started to get into wrought materials. Wrought is stamped or pressed instead of cast. But colors were different, and people have a hard time with that because that's brass, and then if it's like red or pink, that's bronze. Oh, well, what if it's brown? Or what if it's that kind of brown, or that, or this, or even that one? What kind of metal is that? Well, it's the same as this. Those are all bronze. Those are all cast bronze. But the thing is that each manufacturer, depending on the type, so metals work differently. Brasses and bronze work differently. And bronze is not a bronze. It's not a bronze. Bronze is an alloy, and so they would tweak and put different metals in to get different types of malleability in their castings, but also different color in their castings. And so someone used more of something. I'm not going to go into everything else, but you'll get brighter ones, darker ones, greener ones, browner ones, all over the map, just like people, just like us, right? So you can't judge a bronze by its face. There you go. All right, so in manufacturing, what they would do to get this compression casting is they would make the master, and then they would make molds. The molds are made by these. So what this is this has, basically they're called patterns or children, and the patterns are, each one's the same, and the patterns are taken off the original mold, right? I'll flip this over. This has actually the entire doorknob on it. And the way this worked is, and again, different manufacturers, different ways, but this manufacturer, relatively common, it had what were called runners. So you put these in, get your molds done, your sand molds done, clamp them all together, and then you would inject that whole block. This is a block of 6, 2, 4, 6, 2 are missing. You would inject that whole block through what are called runners. You have what's called a gate, and the gate is where the metal was, the liquid hot metal molten metal was injected. And then it ran through runners, which are these here. So it goes down, run, run, down, run, run. Everything connects, gets into these. It's blown in under high pressure. No bubbles, though. High pressure. And it's what gave manufacturers the ability back then to create a product that was really uniform and really ornate. Okay, it was a great advancement in the Industrial Revolution. So that's how they were made. And the backs were made, the faces were made, then they were assembled together, la la la, and they send them out, and they end up everywhere on the planet. Well, sorry about that. Everywhere all over the U.S. This was a United States thing. There was some in the UK, but not a ton. Oh, here's one right here. So this is actually a cast iron one, right? And so this is an elk. Yes, Elk's Lodge, way back when, right? And if you look at that, that's just the inside of it. It's empty. So I just wanted to show you that. The advancement was not just on knobs, but of course on the door plates as well, and other forms of hardware, all the way down the line. And so that's what I have on Eastlake doorknobs. They're fascinating. I'll do one other thing really quick. I'm going to walk over here. We're gonna say hi to Leroy. Yeah, sitting in the sunspot, huh? Good job, buddy. All right, we're going to go up here to the table. Some people wonder about glass, and I am not going to get into any real detail. But the glass doorknob is one glass piece, however they made it. These are really pretty ones, a lot of handwork in them. They're all polished and rounded. But these are broken. And so what I wanted to show you was inside there were, hold on a sec, I might have... Hold on. I'm going to go up to the dusty window here. There we go. Here's one. Okay. So here's a different doorknob. But I wanted to show you how they fit together. Okay, so we have the glass knob. We have the shank. Right? And this one's actually a nickel-plated brass shank. And the way they work is the knob's made with this flare at the bottom of it. And what it does is this piece was straight up. All this rounded part here was straight up. This slid down inside of it. And then they used a tool to round this all the way around and clamp this metal piece over into this groove. Okay? In the bottom of the knob, we have the mirroring, which they put in because they wanted, that's how you get the reflector. That's how you get this really pretty color. That one's a little bunged up. But then when they put it all together, you have these little you see these little radial notches? Well, they actually fit in this. And what that did is that so you connected this to that, but those radial notches interfacing with these are what kept the knob from spinning. We call them spinners. When they do that, the brass wears out and it gets loose and they start spinning, but it keeps it from spinning rotationally. Okay, so when you turn the knob, it turns the base, which turns the spindle, which turns the lock. Right? That's how that whole system works. I just wanted you to see that. This one's broken. It has still broken glass in there, but it's the same thing. All right, so there are the basics of how glass knobs work and all the parts. Then we have porcelain knobs. Now, believe me, there are all kinds of other knobs. We're just going to talk about the popular, easy ones right now. So, with porcelain knobs, they essentially are clay, and they have a glazing on them. So these are called jet knobs or jet black, and that's just what they are. There's white ones, brown ones. You've seen them all. And there are two components essentially. There is the knob, the porcelain knob, and then there is the shank. This is a cast iron shank. Most of them were. And the way that worked, you'll notice this one is empty. It's because the shank fell out of it. And what they would do in manufacturing, they would take the shank and they would pour molten lead into this hole, and they would put the shank in there while it was molten, and it would cool and lock the inside of the knob to the shank. And if you look at this one, it's broken. All right, so the lead, you can see the pieces of lead that are in there, and the lead is a little bit, crusty lead left in there. The lead actually adheres, and some of the shanks have bumps and things all over them to kind of help lock that in. I think this might have been a problem with this one because the slip glaze went all the way down into the hole on the sides. I'm not sure it's a great process, but you can see the clay and the natural color of it. You can see how the middle shank fits up in there, and that's what holds it all together. So there you go. That is a little tutorial on the basic knobs out there. You have porcelain knobs, which from America has them everywhere from the 1850s well into the 1940s. Porcelain doorknobs were a staple. We have glass doorknobs, which are a lot of different kinds and shapes. That's a whole other video. We're not going to go there, but those are the components and how they were typically made. And then I'm going to go back over here to the disaster and to our friends, the Eastlake knobs. And Eastlakes were just late Victorian knobs. The Eastlake era was from about about 1870 to essentially 1900, which is when, it's when a lot of things happened. We moved into a lot of revival periods. We moved into a lot of Art Nouveau, which then went through, and again in the 20s, a lot of revival periods, revival designs, and then into Art Deco. And then we have kind of modern in the 50s, and then here we are today with really boring stuff. So that's kind of the lineage. Eastlake is a period in itself. Again, about 1870 to 1900, 30 years of really ornate design. And Victorian, of course, ran right along with that to 1900 until Queen Victoria died. But they kind of had their own sub-period inside of a period. Really unusual. And Charles Eastlake was an architect. And he dealt a lot with design, and he wrote books about design, and that's a whole other video too. But he's the guy that was a proponent of geometric and vernacular designs. When I say vernacular, he was into things of nature. And if you look, you'll always see interesting things, interesting patterns in leaves and flowers. And this one has a row of bamboo across it and fans and more leaves. Gorgeous stuff. This one has a fern on the right-hand side. It's called a broken fern. And on the left-hand side, it's a broken flower, which breaks and hangs. And it has a screw hole at the top, and then this radial pattern around the outside. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Again, you'll see a lot of flowers and you'll see animals. You'll see a lot of different things. So, this one over here. See, little flowers and geometrics. It's super, super common. One of the real common designs is made by ReHardware in Reading, Pennsylvania, and it's called the Windsor design. A lot of versions of Windsor design that they made, but this is the basic of it. If you see a Windsor, you'll see these little leaves. You'll see the little interlocking little geometrics with the little circles. You'll see really cool backgrounds, and the backgrounds are again, the only way they did this was through compression casting. And here is the door plate that goes with that, and it was a very popular design, but hard to get actually. But anyway, it's just complex. It's amazing. All right, guys, thank you. You take care, and any questions, get a hold of us at Knobs and Handles, www.knobsandhandlespc.com. That PC is for Prairie City, Oregon. All right, thank you. Take care. Bye.